Hi, my name is Jenna Medke, and I'm going to be talking about the school logistics and need to know of an everyday basis of our school district. So, the first thing I'm going to talk about is new building planning. There are three major parts when coming to start to finish of a new business planning. That first process is that design space. So, you're thinking about what your kids need, how you're going to make them successful, the number of classrooms that are going to be needed now and in the future. Other needs of that we might have, like libraries, Fayed, other specials, playground, depending on the age of the school that we are creating, and how all those students are going to be successful in the future. Um, the design stage is very critical because it sets the stage for everything else that is happening. The next thing is it really depends when a new building is being made on the weather and the conditions of the construction. If we are in Manitowoc, Wisconsin, and we are building in the winter, probably going to take longer. If we are building in the summer, we probably have a better bet of getting this done in a faster state. Altogether, this process should take about 2 years. The planning stage will take about 6 months. The construction stage may take a little longer in time, depending on what materials we might need in the future. Now let's think a little bit more about like how long should these buildings last? You put all this effort into designing and making your buildings. Now we have to keep that upkeep. So ultimately, I would love to say school buildings are going to last 50 years or more. But with the way technology and the world and geographical standpoints are going, there's so many different parts of a school, each of them expected to hold up in different ways. So if we think about the inside of our classrooms, that room, that space, that should stay together for longer amounts of time. That everyday use and the technology in our classroom will not last that 50 years. We see how fast things are changing every single day. When we think about the outside of our material, that part should last. If we're building it with brick, it's more weather resistant and changing of the seasons, especially being in Wisconsin, we have every season. So keeping all of those harmful things off of our school are going to be huge in keeping a school building alive for 50 years or more. The next thing we're going to talk about is bond referendums and those need to knows. Like, why are they so hard to pass? Why are people always fighting them? So, a referendum, when we're looking at them, is a long-term effect that's happening. It's a lot of investment that's being made in to your community and into individuals that might not necessarily see everything. So these are some reasons why those bonds are hard to pass in today's world. The first one is trust. Residents don't always trust the school board and administrators that are coming out and talking, so that makes things hard if we have that wall up that we want to get rid of. Creation of the referendum. So we're talking about who created that. Sometimes people think that the referendum and the ideas are created by people who are not in the world of education or who are not believing in today's life that we have. So making sure that we are talking about how we came up with these ideas is going to be huge. The next thing is that price point. Really evaluating the community and how that price point could impact every individual and being very honest about it is a reason why we would want how we would pass it, but sometimes why things are not. Residents in the community don't always understand how to plan for a long-term improvement. So we send out all these ideas, but some people it's very hard to see past that 1 month or 1 week. We want to look those 3 years into the future. That visibility access, like we want board members and teachers to be present and speaking and talking all the time about what the future holds and topics that people are wondering about in their everyday life. We also can work on answering those public's questions, having interviews, having open mics, giving those community members the ability to speak their mind and ask about it. The community wants to know the truth. So that is the biggest thing when wanting to pass a referendum and why they aren't passing is the truth is not being told to every individual in the community. This next part I want to talk about is economic conditions. So, are our economic conditions right now good or bad for bond referendums? Right now, due to the state of our economic bonds and the pandemic, our conditions are not helping with bond referendums and wanting to improve the education of schools for each individual and an individual student over the next 3 years. When we are looking at our economy in the third quarter of this year, it was expanding by 33%, which is great. But last year, our economy shrank 3.5%. We are on our upward swing through this pandemic. And in the last quarter, we have been able to rise our economy by 4%. Let's talk a little bit about how that economy works. So bonds can be used for forecasting and predicting of the future economic times. According to the U.S. World History, normally the yields of long-term notes are higher because investors require more return in exchange for tying up their money for longer times. In that reverse part, though, short-term investors demand a higher interest rate and more return on their investments of long term. Why do we think that? Because they believe that the recession will happen sooner or later, which we are in right now, and we are on that upward swing. So our economic conditions are getting better, but this last year of that pandemic has hurt us. We talked a little bit earlier about wanting our school to last for 50 years. So let's talk a little bit about the best practices for maintaining our facilities. It's extremely important at all times, especially during these tough economic times, to maintain our facility to our best of our ability. Uncertainty is the biggest factor that comes in here. Accidents happen and we have to figure it out, but in our tough economical times, if we can keep everything running smoothly with schedules and checks, we are going to have more success. So let's talk about 3 steps that can help us. We want strategic planning to be high. We want our always looking at that upward part. We want our costs for materials to be low. And then we want our production and our output of things that we are doing to be higher in our life. We want to understand what we need and what we want are 2 different things when maintaining a facility in no matter what school district you are looking at. We want to keep a list of those different repairs that we might need. We want to systematically get our entire district ready to go. That means we're thinking logically. We're thinking about all of the equipment, the full big picture, and then it's going down into some smaller picture. We have key performance indicators that are happening, and we are recording all of the things that we are doing. When we are doing all of these things, we are able to have ourselves ready to go. Another thing that we want to think about is our scheduling. So we schedule regular inspections. We schedule short-term and long-term goals of fixing. We want to talk about decisions that need to be made with everyone, not just one person or the other person. You have everyone together on that main page. When you regularly maintain things, that means the outdoors, that means the indoors, that means building rooms, assets. We're moving parts in the school, we're getting damaged, we're getting away from that wear and tear. When we look at that energy efficiency, we're looking at like what is most optimal for our kids. How are we going to conserve that energy on our daily basis? And we'll talk a little bit about that more later. We want to make sure equipment's not defective. We want to make sure that everything we are doing is on the right page to keep this school up and running at a low cost. I can't say it enough. We want to train. We want to train our maintenance workers and our facility workers to know exactly what they are doing and how they are going to be able to come into a situation. They're always being asked to do little projects by classroom teachers or administrators or local coaches or whatever is happening, making them feel like they are comfortable and they can take on any small or large job is going to be a huge factor when we talk about maintaining our facility. There are so many different ways that we can conserve energy in our school district. They can be as simple as getting students to power down their personal devices while they're at school or while they're not using them, turning off lights when you leave the room, unplugging unnecessary cords when done with them and leaving for the day or during the day, keeping those lights and other things on timers so you know you leave your room, your light is turned off. You're conserving that energy. Keeping your door closed and limiting that technology use in our classroom. We're going to talk a little bit later about technology and its pros and cons of having it in the classroom, but if we can limit some of those things that are being used, we can conserve that energy in our school district. We know that safety options and upgrades are things that we're looking at constantly in our character ed groups and in our safety groups. And we know that there are so many ways that we can protect our students without spending a ton of money, but there's also ways we can protect our students and staff with new protocols. So the biggest thing that you can think about of what reasons of waste, why security can be heightened is know who's coming into your building. Like, have that sign-in sheet, know who you're checking in, start to know those families that are coming in. The next one is allowing visitors into only one door to check in. They come in the door, that next door is locked until they're checked in. We are working on getting a driver's license reader that we can have each person scan when they come in so we know if they're a sex offender or someone that we shouldn't have in our school. That also goes with that, keeping that second door closed until you know who they are, making sure we know everyone. Another way that we can have security upgrades is we can secure the perimeter and the security systems in the area so we know what's happening, or we know that students have more access than they need to, so we can see and be eyes in areas that are not necessarily high traffic areas that students or staff may be in danger from. The last thing that is the biggest thing we can do for our security upgrades is making sure that we have situational awareness. That means staff and students. We should be doing monthly attempts and practices that are different safety protocols that we have, because if they can practice and be prepared, they will be more successful if a safety situation arises in the future, then we feel like we are ready to go.